Good morning, everybody. Excited to be back with you. Excited to be back in sea level South Carolina. Had a blast out at Colorado Springs with the ministry of John and Lisa Bevere. Just some great folks, man. Their team was just fabulous. And if you want to, check out last week's 8-Minute Mind Shift, because I had some of them on to kind of share with me. So, jumping back to 2 weeks ago, we've been talking about the whole spirit, soul, and body. My whole thing is this, man. Hebrews 11:1 says this: Now faith is the substance things hoped for, the evidence of things not come. Just to play with it, now faith is. I've learned something about religion, and I mean religion in its most negative application, meaning the fixed, rigid, legalistic approach to how we honor God, engage God, live with God, whatever. So this system of rules and regulations that religion tends to drift toward, and maybe it's just part of human nature that we find comfort in that. But I'm saying all that to say this: religion and people who are caught up in that kind of thinking, they like to kind of get things all boxed up, and okay, we got it all figured out. This is who God is. This is what He does. This is who I am. This is what I can and can't do, and then they just kind of like, not just I was almost going to say they kind of go to sleep, but I wish that were the case. But then it becomes their duty, if you will, to protect that box of truth. And you just don't want to live that way, man. I mean, there's a lot of presumption and assumption built into that. The presumption that you do have the finality of answers to life's questions and explanations of God, who He is, what He does, that kind of thing. But also the acceptance of the assignment that now that I've got it figured out, it's my God ordained assignment and call to protect it, defend it, and not let it be assaulted. So I just love to swat that box. I love to kind of talk about how. I don't want to be a guy who's always talking about what's wrong, but the truth of the matter is there are some things wrong, and obviously, we get more comfort out of hanging around people who agree with us and tell us how right we are. So growth, though, comes when you live on the edge of what you currently feel is truth, and you live on the edge of being open to God and others pointing out areas where maybe you're not walking in it. So I like to say this about religion. Religion, fine with you talking about what happened 2,000 years ago. Oh, isn't it awesome what Jesus did? And man, we're so grateful. And talk up a blue moon about, what this meant, what that meant, and the implication, and all the breaking down of everything. And religion doesn't mind talking about what's going to happen in the future. Like, it's going to be great over yonder, and when Jesus returns, this is going to happen, and here's the eschatology of the tribulation. In other words, all this stuff that's future tense. And we spend a lot of time talking about what happened back there, what's going to happen over here, past the future. And here's the deal, guys. We live here. Like you could say it this way. We spend a lot of time talking about the past and the future, and we don't really think scripturally, biblically about now. And my point is this: now faith makes religious people really uncomfortable. Just the whole idea that God's up to something right now. And excuse me, I posted a bumper. What do you call it? A bumper tag sticker. That's, I don't know if it's so common anymore, but it was for a while there. Christians aren't perfect, just forgiven. Now, why do I do that? Because it's kind of one of those slogans that, just like, oh, wow, that's just profound. Well, it is, and I get it, but it's also a great leverage point for exposing and discussing a flaw in our Christianity and our thinking. It's because honestly, Christians aren't perfect, just forgiven. Quite honestly, it's just not true. Or it's not the truth. Christians aren't perfect. I would probably agree with that. But the motive for the bumper sticker is, give us a break. We're not perfect. We're going to mess up, whatever. And quite honestly, it's true. I'm going to mess up. You're going to mess up. We're all going to keep messing up. But it kind of is like, it's kind of like setting the bar pretty low, if you know what I'm saying. The word perfect in most places in the New Testament is the word mature. And it really has the, excuse me, the implication of reaching your potential, releasing the stored potential that's in you, kind of like a seed, So Christians aren't perfect. Christians aren't mature. Christians aren't reaching their potential. And unfortunately, I would probably have to agree with that. I'm not saying it's okay, but it's probably a decent statement of fact. Christians are not perfect, just forgiven. Whatever. Guys, I'm sure you know by now I like to be sarcastic, and really I do it, I hope, just to kind of get your attention. But, I'd kind of put you in a headlock and give you a noogie, man. I mean, no, we're not just forgiven. I don't even know how we can say that and not be embarrassed by it. Yes, we're forgiven, but not just forgiven. We have two problems. Most Christians would say we have one, and it's sin, but that's not true. We have two problems. One is sin and one is death. Back in Genesis 3, back in 1, 2, and 3, God said, if you eat of the tree, you're going to die. Now, eating of the tree would be considered a sin because it's a violation of God's declared will and all that kind of thing. So it's disobeying God, right? But he said, when you do that, if you do that, you're going to die. So there's two things introduced there. Sin, which is breaking from God's prescribed way of living, and submission and surrender to his loving leadership. But the second thing is death. What kind of death? Well, we've talked about this a little bit. Eve didn't fall over dead. Their bodies stopped breathing, hearts ceased to beat. But they did die in the sense that in the spirit realm, which is a very important point, their connection to God was severed. Their correspondence with God was severed. Why is that a big deal? Because when you think about the remedy, the redemption and restoration, and we spend a whole lot of time talking about redemption. We don't spend a whole lot of time talking about restoration. And that's kind of probably my beef, quite honestly, that we kind of lull Christians into believing that, I'm born again. Wow, I'm glad that's done. It's not done. It is and it isn't. But my point is, yes, Christians aren't perfect, but we're supposed to be heading that way, especially when you see the word perfect as mature and having reached potential. We're not perfect. We're not mature. We're not reached our potential. But dear God in heaven, we're supposed to be heading that way. We're supposed to be heading that way with every breath we breathe. We're supposed to be heading that way with every decision we make, with every prayer we pray. We're not supposed to live our life hiding and kind of hoping for heaven. That's all going to happen. I believe in all that. But gosh, let's grab life by the throat and say, wow, God's got more for me. God's put more in me. I am more than I currently appear to be. And I am not just forgiven. I am forgiven. Dear God, thank you. But I am not just forgiven. So what I just want to stir you about is there's more to this thing, man. It is so cool. It's so exciting. It has charged and energized my wife and my life for 43 years, man. and going to do it for another 30 or 40. That'd be great, wouldn't it? But here's the deal. No, you're not perfect. You're not fully mature. You're not whatever. But you aren't just forgiven either. And let's just kind of dig in and look at some of what that means if you and I are gonna kind of go after this thing with passion and purpose. Passion and purpose. All right? Love you guys. Man, I'm honored that you hang around with me, man. And see you next week.